today's format is a discussion. So we are looking for the participation of the participants online. We're going to be discussing how logic and emotions mix in political communication, and especially how things like art and culture use feelings to influence messages. So just a little bit of housekeeping about how this discussion is going to proceed. I will first cede the floor to Svitlana to open up the conversation and to frame the conversation that we're going to have today, to discuss how we're going to sort of explore and rethink political communication to help countries connect better after war. And the idea is really to create new ideas for research and for discussions in public and media spaces. So after that framing, we're also going to turn to a few of the participants for specific comments and then open it up to a group conversation. And so with all of that said, I cede the floor first to Svitlana.
Thanks to everyone who joined our discussion. Thank you, Eliza, for the introduction. I hope we will have a useful and interesting conversation for all our further scientific researchers. I would like to present some thoughts that occurred to me at the intersection of my two life experience. On the one hand, I am a researcher who has experience in considering multifactorial social events rooted in a certain way of thinking and in a specific historical time. And on the other hand, I am a consumer of those scientific results and practical actions that are related to international activity and political communication. This is the context of my personal life. My country is going through a war, which a war in a culturally European country. This means that the war is a fact of a certain development state of European culture with its manifestation in politics, social morality, public management, and international relations. There is such advice, half a joke, that a literary text can be perceived differently if you read it 3 times. The first time when you are younger than the main character, the second time when you are in his age, and the third time when you are older than the main character. Since many political phenomena are measured by humanism at a deep level, I would like to talk about the conceptual interpretation of the concept of human rights, which for me acquired different political meanings in different periods of my life. In the first stage of my social political life, human rights were a slogan of resistance to the communist dictatorship. In the second, human rights were a symbol of unity with the world of liberal democracy. And in the third stage, human rights became a justification for military aggression against my country. In February 2022, Russia invaded Ukraine, explaining to its citizens and international community that it was going to protect the right of Russian-speaking people. For most of us, human rights are what the integrity understand as an important component of our social and private lives. We can even name the main one, but here the situation is the same as with the moral rules that were given to Moses. We know that there are 10 commandments, but we confidently name 3 or 4 of them. So, having a personal experience of the war, which is justified the protection of human rights, I decided once again open the primary documents, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which was the most progressive moral and political act born of the Second World War. Although more detailed documents are the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights and the International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights, the text of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights deserves special attention because it is a worldview basis or mindset basis of international political morality and a holistic embodiment of most relevant problems of social political ethics as seen in 1948. We should analyze this document as a historical heritage of political culture. The problem is that almost of its 30 articles can be accompanied by comments that have to begin with "but." We have lived through years of significant technological progress in scientific humanitarian research, progress in political practices, and change in economic methodologies. Nowadays, we live in a different social, economic, and cultural informational reality. But in fact, our fundamental moral prescription regarding the most important norm of social justice have remained unchanged. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights was created under the slogan "Never Again" or "Nevermore," which was the main emotion at the end of the Second World War. This document framed political communication and described social ideas when the pursuit of peace seemed to be a shared moral imperative. But today, the basic ethical principles of communicative philosophy can be questioned. We cannot proceed from the fact that everyone a priori seeks to understand each other. Only when peace and harmony are a truly common goal do we need mediation techniques, psychological experience, historical and cultural explanations, and strategies for achieving mutual understanding. Unfortunately, we have become convinced that political goals can be criminal, but skillfully conditioned by good intentions. Our interlocutor may seek confirmation rather than harmony and cooperation. I propose read the articles of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights through the lens of the social political experience we gained during the Russian-Ukrainian war. So, there is the Article 28. Everyone is entitled to a social and international order in which the rights and freedoms set forth in this declaration can be fully realized. The text of this article should be mentioned more often when Russia appeals to protect human rights through military aggression. In Europe and in general in the world, the international order has been violated, and as a result, many rights are threatened precisely because of Russia's actions. But this is the same already mentioned word "but." It is clear that while building a new security architecture, we have to rediscuss the philosophy of human rights, and we have to ensure the international order that will make the realization of human rights sustainable. Our experience of information warfare fake news, the use of bots and information from AI in social networks prompts us to hear somewhat differently what is proclaimed in Article 90. I quote it, everyone has the right to freedom of opinion and expression. This right includes freedom to hold opinions without interference and to seek, receive, and impart information and ideas through any media and regardless of frontiers. Information security, information hygiene, and media literacy. These components did not concern the world when the article was written. It is logical that declared freedom of dissemination of information should be based on the freedom of thought, conscience, and religion, which is recorded in Article 18. But, for example, the experience of a Russian Orthodox Church acting in Ukraine, the free interpretation of history for political purpose, and the assessment of the expediency of the state of Ukrainian existence by official representatives of Russia shows that this freedom can be used to justify war and incite ethnic hatred. The article sounds as follows. Everyone has the right to freedom of thought, conscience, and religion. This right includes freedom to change his religion or belief, and freedom, either alone or in company with others and in public or private, to manifestate his religion or belief in teaching, practice, worship, and observance. Today, the biggest contradiction arises regarding the implementation of the provisions of Article 16. Men and women of full age without any limitation due to race, nationality, or religion have the right to marry and to found a family. They are entitled to equal rights as to marriage during marriage and its dissolution. The family is a natural and fundamental group unit of society and is entitled to protection by society and the state. Therefore, this article does not say anything about sexual minorities and gender self-determination, but gives the right to limit the rights of women and men, although it sounds paradoxical. But during the war, the family for Ukrainians as a legal institution became relevant in different sense, far from sexuality. Family is those whom you give the right to decide your fate in complex medical cases and become your heirs. As a result, there is demand for quasi-family, legally formalized partnerships. In connection with migration process, which have become a constant accompaniment of war, wherever it occurs, the article stating the rights to citizenship, to return to one's country and not to be expelled from one country, also need to be reconsidered and widely discussed. This is a problem of refugees, their integration into the new cultural circumstance of the host country, and political relations with the country of citizenship. Article 11 is quite ambiguous, and the experience of the Russian-Ukrainian war shows no one shall be held guilty of any penal offense on account of any act or omission which did not constitute a penal offense under national or international law at the time when it was committed. Nor shall a heavier penalty be imposed than the one that was applicable at the time the penal offense was committed. Ukrainians are aware of situation are aware of a situation when individuals who participated in the torture or killing of civilians in Russian-occupied cities received state awards in Russia. It turns out that under national law, this did not constitute a crime at the time these actions were committed. And then there is a question of international institution which should provide legal support for the observance of human rights. The dilemma with arrest warrants for Putin and Netanyahu is a vivid example of the problematic implementation of this article. But in the end, in a special way for Ukrainian today, Article 1 sounds, perhaps it is the most famous article. All human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. They are endowed with reason and conscience and should act toward one another in a spirit of brotherhood. For many centuries, Russians claimed that Ukrainians were their brothers. In the Russian doctrine of international relations, there is a formula about three brother nations: Russians, Ukrainians, and Belarusians, who are particularly one nation with minor differences in folklore and everyday life. I was taught that at school. 80% of Russians are sure of this. The Russian Federation explained the need for a special military operation, as they call it, by the duty of free their brothers from the bad guys from Kiev, by their responsibility as a big brother. The answers and public recognition of the change in the cultural circumstances of our life is a prologue to the recognition of the need to accept as a basis of building a post-war war the experience that is given us to us with so much pain and human sacrifice. I think that the level of responsibility of contemporary humanities scholars and the amount of intellectual contribution they have to make to a new worldview formula of global political morality should inspire collaboration and fruitful professional communication. Actually, I invite the seminar participants to this. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Svitlana. Will we first turn to the other presentation from the participant, or would you like to first open up to the general audience?
Yes, thank you. Thank you. We just have one special participator of our participants of our seminar. This is Professor Ella Mamontova. She is now in Odessa, in Ukraine. But during the few minutes before the start of our seminar, she said us that in Odessa we have bombing threats, and she can't be in contact with us. I don't see it now
No, she's not.
Yes, so it seems that connection is rejected, but we have her text and we have slides. She allow us to perform this slide on her behalf. If you allow me, I would like to speak.
Yes, please. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. The Professor Ella Mamontova prepared one topic, about communicative strategies of the Russian-Ukrainian war, goals, directions, means. So, I will read your text. Today, Ukraine is experiencing one of the most dramatic periods in its history. On the agenda are not only issues of protecting state sovereignty and preserving territorial integrity, but also the task of simple survival of each individual Ukrainian and the Ukrainian nations as well. It is worth nothing for Ukraine. This war is existential in nature, seeing each war of meanings and the meaning of its very existence. At the same time, for Russia, this war is testing ground for the latest hot and cognitive technologies of future global battles for the redistribution of the world order. Next slide, please. In order to destroy Ukrainian statehood, the Russian Federation uses the most powerful arsenal, from transcontinental weapons to traditional meat assaults dating back to the First World War. Every morning in Ukraine begins with watching the news. Which cities were attacked by drones at night? How many bombs and missiles were used? How many homes were destroyed? How many people died? But the goal of the Russian aggressor is not only the physical destruction of the Ukrainian population and the destruction of critical and public infrastructure. With the help of an extensive network of mass media and other soft power tools, Russia is trying to legitimize its action in the eye of the international community. The next slide, please. Communication channels are the means of such legitimation. In general, the issue of communication during war is complex, multifaceted, and can be considered in many aspects. Firstly, we can separately consider Russia's communication strategies towards Ukraine, towards the European community, towards individual countries of the collective West and the global South. The next slide. Secondly, in the context of the topic of our roundtable, it would be interesting to consider the communication strategies of collective subjects of world politics and individual countries of the world regarding the coverage of Russian-Ukraine conflict. The next slide. Thirdly, a particularly interesting direction of discussion for the Ukrainian side may be the discussion of the effectiveness of Ukraine's communication strategy in the countries of the world and Europe, in particular in Switzerland. What place does the issue of the Russian-Ukrainian war occupy in the European information space? How was the image of Ukraine changed over the last 3 years of full-scale war? I hope that the perception of Ukraine is not limited to two extreme images, a fearless hero and a helpless victim. The next slide. Today, Ukrainians in extremely difficult conditions ensure the uninterrupted operations of the railway, energy infrastructure, and banking system. The next slide. Our farmers have learned to sow and harvest crops under shelling and in minefields, and also sell it to foreign partners. The next slide. The post office delivers your shipment and parcel to the most dangerous corner of the country on time within 1 day. In frontline cities, every morning, despite the constant shelling and danger, cafes with fragrant pastries open at the usual time. Despite everything, small and medium-sized businesses are developing. Next slide. The efficiency of medical services, despite the fact that a significant part of doctors is involved in military affairs, are acting. Military medicine and rehabilitation are a separate matter of wartime. The next slide. The education system is working well. Schools, colleges, and universities have a flexible schedule for transitioning to online mode depending on security conditions. Science is developing in the country. Academic theories are being defended. New discoveries and patterns are appearing. Despite the war, a powerful network of extracurricular athletic education continuing to function. Our children, as in pre-war times, are enthusiastically engaged in music and art schools, dance, study foreign languages, and play sports. The next slide. I would like to say something about the volunteer movement. These include supporting the army, psychological assistance, rescuing animals from areas where hostilities are taking place, organizing operational assistance in emergency situations. The next slide. In this series, a special place is occupied by the sphere of anti-crisis communication, countering fakes and Russian propaganda. So Ukraine has something to tell the world. Does Ukrainian use all possible communication channels for this? Unfortunately, no. The next slide. I propose to consider the sphere of culture and arts as such a powerful channel. The war became a real catalyst of cultural creativity. The number of exhibitions, performances, theater, premieres, concerts, book presentation, and festivals increased significantly. The walls of houses were covered with spontaneous murals and cartoon boards. Songs are heard in the cities every evening. Social networks are overflowing with wartime poetry, frontline memories, and sketches from the real. It should be emphasized that the humorous creativity is flowering as well. The next slide. But in my opinion, the most powerful communication channel during the war should be Ukrainian cinema. Of course, I am exaggerating a bit, but would most people know about the identity of Scotland if it were not for Braveheart with Mel Gibson? Would people be worried about the fate of Taipei if it were not for 7 years in Taipei with Brad Pitt or Little Buddha by Bertolucci? What percentage of people have been to Japan? But we have a lot of imagination about this country, precisely thanks to its national cinema. The next slide. We also know about the powerful machine for developing an attractive image of Russia as territory of great culture, which is based on a combination of impeccable classical aesthetic with the depth and breadth of the mysterious Russian soul. And we hear almost nothing about Ukraine. The world needs to be given a visualization of Ukraine, its history and identity. We need an epic, expensive, high-quality film about Ukraine. And it is needed right now on this great wave that the Russian-Ukrainian war has raised in the European and global information space. So thank you for your attention. This is all previously prepared texts. So if somebody want to comment something, or you have some additional ideas about the rules or meaning or goals of communication, so let's join us.
Thank you so much, and thank you for presenting as Ella Mamontova could not be with us at the last minute. So this is now opening up into a broader discussion. So 2 quick notes. You can put your hand up to raise a point or a question, and I'll keep track of the order in which people would like to speak. And if you could kindly, when you do speak, if you could kindly introduce yourself. You don't have to put your camera on, but if you could say who you are as you participate in the conversation. So I'm sure people already have questions and comments, but I'm also going to pose 2 broader questions based on these interventions so far to kind of get us started. So looking backwards and looking forward a little bit. Looking backward, one of the big questions that's raised is how such a new war could start in Europe after so many years of peace-building efforts, peacemaking efforts on the continent, and relatedly and sort of importantly looking forward and touching quite a bit on both presentations. How do nonverbal ways of communicating, art, symbols, actions, play a role in politics, and how will they shape the world after the war? So you can address those questions directly or raise points, thoughts, questions, concerns based on the intervention so far. And I will start with Agnieszka.
Thank you, Eliza, and thank you so much, Svitlana. So yes, my name is Agnieszka Fardyta Santos, and I'm a research project looks at the economic recovery in Ukraine through a feminist lens at the Gender Center. And I wanted to thank you so much, Svitlana, for this presentation and for, I didn't catch the name of the second person whose presentation you read out, but but yeah, they were both very, very interesting. And I just wanted to follow up with two questions, reflections, questions more really, right? There were thoughts that came to my mind as you were speaking, but of course you're the experts. I look forward to hearing what those reflections kind of trigger in you, right? What response? And so the first one is about, and that came out maybe a little bit in the second presentation, right? With, it speaks about Ukraine's communication strategy, right? But at the same time, I felt like it spoke more to about the speakers, right? The person who's not with us today is okay, Professor Mamontova, her vision of what the strategy should be rather than what it has been, right? But what has been kind of playing in my mind as you were speaking about this is I recently saw this graph, this visualization of, this is a small thing, right? But I think it's pretty powerful as an image of the number of searches for the word Ukraine, in Google search engine, right? And so it goes like this. Then we have 2014 when it goes like this, a little bump, and then it goes like this, and then we have 2022 and it goes like this, right? So suddenly people want to more about Ukraine. People want to hear more about Ukraine. I think it has been one of the more mediatized conflicts of the recent years, and that has its bad sides but possibly it is in this sense an opening for Ukraine to, I guess, define or redefine itself on the global stage a little bit. So I just wanted to ask whether because that's a form of political communication, that external communication about who we are and who we want to be and how we want to be perceived and how we want to be supported as Ukrainians, right? Whether you've seen, what strategies you have seen, whether everyone in Ukraine is in agreement. I don't expect you to know that, right? But whether the government has been seizing this opportunity strategically, in what way, what other ways, whether civil society has been seizing this opportunity, etc. So that's one reflection and thought, and just maybe a direction of these conversations I would just love to hear more of your thoughts on. And then the second one is looking more internally, right? And you talked a lot, your presentation, Svitlana, is so interesting with how laws get reinterpreted depending on where we sit, right? And those it seems basic rights that are enshrined in the Human Rights Declaration can just be read completely differently, and that there can be really emotional narratives around it, right? And the narrative of brotherhood that you alluded to at the very end is very interesting. And so definitely, I think, I would imagine all of this shapes the discourse within Ukraine. And you spoke a bit, and then Professor Mamadova's presentation also made very clear the role of Russia's propaganda in this sense, right? And how things are represented. But I also wondered if you have any reflections or data or thoughts on how it works also just at a more human level of there is a lot of emotions when there is violence, right? Any form of violence, and a war, and such a large scale war, and an existential war, like you said yourself, just raises a lot of emotions in, I imagine, most people that live through it and the society as such. So do you find this has reshaped the public debate in Ukraine? Or is it easier to talk about certain things now because of some sense of solidarity? Is it more difficult to talk about other things? Because a public debate exists in any country at any time, regardless of whether it's going through a war or not. So how has this internal dialogue within Ukraine, among Ukrainians, between the Ukrainian civil society and the government, how has it been reshaped because of the war and the emotions that it has brought with it? I'll stop here.
Thank you so much, Agnieszka. Svitlana, if it's okay with you, I'm going to take a couple other comments and questions just to get the conversation going. So Christina, you're next. Oh, you're muted.
Sorry about that. Yeah, thank you very much, Svitlana. So those of you who don't know me, I'm a lawyer by training, and we are both fellow with Svitlana at the Global Governance Center. So I'm here to support. And I have to say that despite having been exposed to some of the images that Svitlana showed, I always find it very, very difficult to see them. But I just wanted to say that so I come from a neighboring country, and I've been on 2 missions to Ukraine, to Mariupol, and to Kiev with the ICRC, and I have always I've always been impressed by the fact that Ukrainians are very good communicators. So even before 2022, I had the feeling that first of all, Ukrainians are by nature communicators, and second of all, that they're very entrepreneurial. And I think these 2 skills turned out to be quite handy when the government, but also civilians, many civilians, university professors, researchers, soldiers actually took on this function of communicating strategically or not about what's happening in Ukraine. And I think this aligned also quite well with how Ukraine used international law in general during this war. Ukraine has lodged, I think, 9 interstate complaints at the European Court of Human Rights, and I think they have lodged a war-related complaint at all existing international tribunals. So on the one hand, of course, there were some very serious breaches of international law, but I always thought this was a way to strategically communicate about what was happening and offering law as a way to resolve this when the opposing party, the Russian Federation, was saying, well, this is a war that we're not going to solve through legal means, but through sheer force. So I always found this very interesting and unusual. I would like to learn more about the roots of this perspective. I know that Ukraine had since after the fall of the Soviet Union, Ukraine had a lot of foreign advisors. But even though I come from a neighboring country and we never had the same how to say, like wit and smarts to do the things that Ukraine has been doing. So yeah, I'm just curious about the roots of all this, and yeah, thank you.
Thank you. There's some interesting links between those 2 sets of questions, but I think I'm still going to take two more sets of questions from Achim and Oksana before we circle back around and address some of these. Thank you very much, Christina. Achim?
Hello?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
Hello.
Yes, hello.
I'm sorry for
Hold on, Achim. We can't hear you. Is this as garbled for everybody else?
No, we cannot hear either. Maybe
Yeah, you can.
in the chat.
Yeah, it's garbled.
Achim, I'm sorry, it's very garbled right now. What I'll maybe do is move on to Oksana and give you a minute to maybe get somewhere with a bit of a clearer connection, okay?
All right.
I'm assuming he said all right. Thank you, Achim. Sorry, it's a little bit difficult to hear you right now. Oksana.
Thank you so much, Eliza, and thank you to the Global Center, to your Center on Conflict Studies, and to Svitlana for organizing this important discussion. And also it's good to see that there are so many people present and so much interest. Just my comments would be along the first question which you raised, Eliza, about thinking, kind of providing a number of different, also maybe going along also with the questions which were raised by Christina about a variety of opinions which emotions which currently exist in Ukraine, and also your question about long-term peace building and failure of long-term of peace building and how do we make sense out of that. Just first to say, it's important for us to understand that now we live through one of the most dramatic escalatory stages in this conflict as we speak. The last few weeks have been really very important in terms of these escalatory force and back movements, which really took the conflict even totally to a new level with these escalatory moves. And the big question is what it means next, these escalatory trends in terms of peace talks or further escalation that we still don't know. We have very different signals coming from different parts, but it's an important question what comes next. Then on current trends in Ukraine, it's what Professor Mamontova and Svitlana have showed that indeed has been so much courage and so much bravery going through these more than 2 years of war, and the images, as Christina said, are difficult to see. But also important to see that it's not only bravery, but what we see is also exhaustion. And it's not only exhaustion in Ukraine, civilian exhaustion, but also military exhaustion. What we see also, it's not what is underreported. It's not only exhaustion on the Ukrainian military side when we hear reports from the military who are really on the front line. Personal lack of armaments, but most importantly, what is underreported, totally underreported in the international discussion, it's also the same situation on the Russian side, where Russia projects the image that and increases its missile attacks and so on, but also what we hear from people on the front lines, that there is also exhaustion on the other side. Also on reports like this year, I was also, as Christina, I visited Ukraine and have done some interviews, and the voices are also, opinions are very different. There are those who say that negotiations are not possible, and for us the better option is just to continue to fight than to accept any compromises. But also there are opinions where people say that with the current exhaustion and with not seeing any way out, there are also voices that increasingly speak in favor of negotiations, although of course there are different debates about what it means in terms of concessions and so on. Also, what is important are surveys, sociological surveys, which show very big change of public opinion about negotiations, and that especially took place, these changes in the last few months, where increasing public support for peace talks, but also increasing support for different types of concessions, but mostly this is also linked to security guarantees. What we see, if there are really security guarantees, then more people are open for compromises. But also what we see, there are quite a few radical voices. What we see also, there are groups in Ukraine which blame the West for the strategy which was taken over 2.5 years by providing enough support to survive, with the key legitimization that this will help Ukrainian position in peace talks, but not helping Ukraine to win the war. And that's what I see, that's really becoming a very loud voice, and also those blaming Zelensky, saying that he did not mobilize the country for victory, and just seeing that the situation came into an impasse with difficult to see what is next and what is the path to victory, about which the public authorities have been talking over the last 2.5 years. We also see these voices are quite strong in Ukrainian society. Just to finish, several reflections about the peace process so far. What we see that currently both sides are on irreconcilable positions, both Ukraine and Russia, and they become more entrenched, these positions, with the Ukrainian side, with the Zelensky peace formula, return to the 1991 borders, and full forces. Of course, there were some more nuanced, more recently statements, but on the Russian side, it really remains like the last statements we have is from June 2024, just before the Bürgenstock conference. This position became much more entrenched in terms of kind of this famous Russian phrase, accepting the new realities on the ground, but also repeating all of the demands which were made throughout the years, starting with the rights of Russian language neutrality in the NATO, the rights of Russian Orthodox Church of Ukrainian Orthodox Church of Moscow Patriarchate, and so on. That's really also very important for those who support peace talks. It's really important to understand how difficult any talks would be, because the positions really become more irreconcilable, and with the death, suffering, and so on, that's also the position, just understanding how difficult. And just to finish, I would like to offer some answers to this big question, Eliza, that you posed, what went wrong? And I think it's a very big, important question that we see, that currently it's a questioning overall of the peace through negotiation, size of illiberal peace approaches, and questioning the efficacy of dialogue, peace through negotiations. And that we have seen over the last 10 years, that this has become really the trend, where none of the agreements which were concluding starting from 21st of February 2014, the agreement during the Maidan contestation through Minsk, and even if we take Istanbul and negotiation in Belarus, none of these agreements, all of them failed. And we have to ask the big question, what was the reasons why these agreements for such a long period of time, and why this negotiated peace did not make progress? Because also this escalation we can see not only as a long-term kind of imperial legacies and so on, and NATO, like these major explanations of what went wrong, but also in my own understanding, it's important to ask the question, what went wrong and why there has been so little progress made with the implementation of negotiated peace agreements. And my own answer is that the complex we really face, one of the most complex conflicts, wars at many different levels, that I don't think that we can really compare to other contexts, with global, national, interregional, local, and so on. And the peace process has really failed to match these multi-level levels of conflicts. And my analysis, it is the need for the peace process to match the existing different levels, and understanding the entrenchment. But also one kind of point of hope is just to understand what happened from February till March 2022, when Ukraine and Russia were talking, and both sides made some compromises and advances, which might be just some hope that if processes, like the more importance of processes than just focusing on these irreconcilable positions, because we saw what happened, that both sides made some compromises, even Russia during this process, but just the process was too short. And this is also, if we analyze 10 years of peace processes, there has been such rigidification of peace processes and positions, where there was not this flexibility and multi-level peace process to move and really reconsider some of the issues which become irreconcilable even within the peace process. And really we need to take into account these failures when if the window of opportunity will open itself, as we hope from January 2025, maybe there will be more openings for peace talks. But as I said, for me, it's really important to understand these long-term tendencies over the last 10 years. And again, thank you so much for the organizers, that it's really good to be part of this discussion.
Thank you, Oksana. Achim, have you gotten somewhere where there's a clearer connection? I'll take that as a no. Svitlana, would you like to address? I mean, some of these questions, I think, are specifically to you, if also to the other participants in this discussion. Would you like to address some of the comments that have been made so far?
Thank you once again to all participants. Thank you for your comments. Of course, I don't know all answers on your comments. I just invite you to prolong our discussion. But for my side, I think that this situation, this crisis between Russia and Ukraine, is not only regional crisis. It's a crisis for all European mindset and vision of perspectives of our civilizational roots. And I think that our peace, this is not only a stop fighting, not only a stop fire, not only a stop bombing. I think that in January, of course, now we in Ukraine a more popular idea that we need stop this hot part of war. We understand this on the first level. We saw on Russia, and we understand this is a very big and very powerful and a very important part of global world state. And we was wondered by ourselves that we stand again, that we stand so hard about our independence. But now more and more often we speak within the Ukraine. We speak about Ukraine after war. We fight now, but what Ukraine we need, what Ukraine we will build. We now have many pain, many suffering, but what is purpose? What is purpose of our fighting? But absolutely understanding that now we have absolutely different, in regional level, we have absolutely different agenda with Russia. We now want to build our country. Russians want to destroy their political system, their citizen relationship. In Ukraine, we believe that we on the right on the right road, on the right way, and the end of this war was a very significant shift for all relations in global meaning, because we need to understand something about yourselves as European people, because Ukraine is Europe, not only territorially, not only in geographic sense. All that we just have between Ukraine and Russia, this is a continuing of European ideas, European statements, European symbols, and so on. If you have this statement, this territory of state is very important for as international law unit. It is our goal. If we consider that territorial is not very important, for new society, for new perspective. But European should understand that many considers, that many conclusions is following after this. This is only point why we every time said about our logical, our law protection borders. Of course, we understand that we can be like South and use Korean, or like West and East German during the 20th century. Of course, but this now depends on global understanding what is the right way of solidarity and of peaceful way for all the rules of our intercommunication. So, of course, I would like, I wish peace to my country, and I hope we will do together all for this peaceful world for all of us. Thank you all participants once again for your comments, for your inspiring comments, and I hope we will continue this communication. Very important, not for me as a native Ukrainians, but for me as European scholars. Thank you.
Thank you, Svitlana. Christina, did you have a follow-up question?
No, I mean, I could talk about these subjects forever, but I'm just here to support Oksana and her idea and to learn about the topic. But yeah, thank you very much.
Sorry, I saw your hand still up. Yeah, okay, perfect. Duly noted.
Oh, I think that's just my browser
Left over.
Yeah, sorry.
No problem. No problem. Thank you so much for this. I mean, we still have a little bit of time. I believe this discussion goes until 2 p.m. today. So we have a few more minutes to continue this discussion. So there's a few more questions that I was going to put out, but let's start with Alev. Go ahead.
Yes, hi. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
I want to first thank Svitlana for organizing, or you, I don't know who organized.
Svitlana.
Okay. I used to be in the film business before I got into global and international governance. And I kind of lost the conviction that we could actually change things with film. So in relation to the communication side of things, because there have been so many absolutely perfect movies made communicating some issues, but the issues are still around. So it's like I think that people need to just understand how the world works, and that's what I'm working towards. So I think also to come to the question, why is this happening? This speaks to the systemic approach that I'm trying to take. Well, I hope we can meet again, Svitlana, and talk between us a bit more in depth. That's I guess the input that I was trying to give, and Also, I feel very concerned right now about how things would evolve because I don't see that the international community wants things to be resolved. I mean, everything is being done in a way to shut out parties that people don't like here. And I don't think this is going, I mean, there's no way this would, if there was any intention part of the West, I have to say, to resolve. So I'm very concerned. I feel very concerned, and I would be happy to hear opinions. Thank you.
Would anybody else like to provide a comment either with regards to anything that, yes, Christelle.
Good morning in my country. Good day to you. Well, it's basically a comment, so short. I think that war is kind of to understand a little bit for my logic and to complete this idea with history and all the progress that have been coming all around the world. War come with progress and succeed. So war is not only a problem or maybe discomfort or something that is wrong. What I think is that war come with progress and succeed. And this is proof about the years, about the history. And well, what I think is that it's a little bit hard to understand my position, but is necessary what is happening right now in the world. Thank you.
The conflict is necessary for forward progress, is that? Yeah. Is your point that in moments of chaos it creates opportunity for there's an expression I've heard that chaos is a ladder. Is this what essentially you're trying to
I want to explain you my position. It would be good for me to try to you can understand me, understand my logic, because what are we living right now in the world? If we analyze, we are living, for example, I'm from Trujillo. I'm right now in Trujillo, Peru, in the region of La Libertad, in the north of Peru. What I'm living right now in my country, in my city. Every day we have death, we have different kind of criminal things, we have pain, we have sadness, we have poverty. And what is happening? What is happening in my country? In Peru, government doesn't do anything. People is bored of protest with this. I'm sure last week we had a protestation about the death of women because men have the custom, the habit of kill women. And we're living right now. And in my country, if a man or if a woman kill another person, doesn't matter to him, doesn't matter to her. And what we are living, I'm sure I was studying my master in Switzerland, and it's different. I was in Geneva, I was in Canada. It's different reality. But we have first world, third world, second world. What is happening with the third world? What are the other countries right now doing to help us, or maybe to help the philosophy or the logic of things, men's, women's, kids, in order to progress in life, to change this world? In pollution, I'm an environmental engineer in pollution. We have all the city, lot of garbage, lot of bad smells, and when I was in the bus, I traveled to Lima yesterday. Avant year, I was traveled to in Lima, and I saw a kid, a girl, throwing the bottle, the plastic bottle of a water, empty, from the window to the street, in the middle of transportation. And this is logic. There is here in my country a lot of people that is doing this. What is the logic? I don't understand. This is not normal. What is happening? Screens, smart screens, cell phones, media. What I think, in my position, in my logic, in my understanding, is that there is a power of people that is trying to do something in the minds of other people that have not the equal level of intelligence. I'm not insulting other people, but I'm trying to explain. What I think is that people that have better or in high level of intelligence of other people is trying to dominate, to continue having power to manipulate other people, to do certain things, to do some things. And what is the objective of this? This is my theory.
Thank you.
Why is the...
Thank you,
Okay.
Crystal. Thank you. Julia?
Thank you. I'll put the video on. How can I? Anyways, hi everyone. So Julia Bethwaite, Tampere, postdoctoral researcher, Tampere University, also research associate at the Global Governance Center. I defended my dissertation a couple of months ago, and I was also studying their art in IR, or how Russian elites and Russian state used art to accumulate power. Anyways, so coming from here, or coming from there, I would be interested to hear more about specific theoretical and conceptual tools that you have been using in studying politics and aesthetics, or politics of aesthetics. I don't know, Ron Bleicher or Jacques Rancière. Just curious that which are have been useful theories that or concepts that you have been using in your work, and kind of like recommend studying the politics of aesthetics, basically. Thank you.
Thank you, Julia. And Christina, now I'm convinced it's a new hand.
And that's a new hand, right? I just wanted to piggytail on what Alev and Oksana said in different ways. And this is the fact that all creators at some point will lose faith in their creation. So communicators nowadays are saying, well, what are we communicating for is probably useless. And soldiers are saying, oh, what are we fighting for? It's maybe useless. And Alev, filmmakers losing faith in the power of their creations. And probably this is just part of anything. At some point we lose faith in this. It doesn't mean, however, that it's not important, because it's not for us to judge political communication about this war. At this point, I think it will play the role of keeping memory of what has happened, and irrespective of the outcome of the peace process, we will never forget what happened. And this will inform the knowledge and understanding of many generations to come about the meaning of such actions. And I know this for sure because I see students in my class. They are young, they are in their 20s, and they have made up their minds about what they want and what they don't want. in the future, and I think this is maybe the most powerful message of this political communication that has been coming out of Ukraine. Right. So I just want to share that at some point I also lost faith in the purpose of my research and my writing and my teaching, and that's just part of what we do. And yeah, it's not for us to judge.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Christina. That's a very powerful sentiment to share. I think there's some excellent points made about, you know, there's the tools and how those tools are used and leveraged. And I think there's a nice parallel that can be drawn between what you just said, Christina, about the power of film or cinema or the arts, for example, and how Svitlana framed this conversation at the outset about the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and the different perspectives, how this tool can be used, perceived, manipulated, etc. You know, these tools are ultimately mediums, and coming back to Svitlana's opening framing, there's therefore endless interpretations and ways that we can inject meaning depending on positionality and emotions and aesthetics. Svitlana, would you like to address Yulia's question about some of the theories or theorists that have inspired your work? Svitlana, can you hear me? Sylvia?
Yes, we can hear you.
Sorry, I heard name Julia.
Sorry. No, the question was you. I was just wondering if you wanted to address. So Yulia had a question specifically for you. She was interested in some of the theories and theorists that have inspired you in your work. I think she mentioned Roland Bleecker and other academics who study aesthetics, and whether there was anyone that particularly inspired your work that you could point to.
So in my research base, I'm a philosopher, and I very good to know the philosophy of social cultural dynamics, and I understand that our world will change. Our world was changed many times. And we need this change now, because we have a really very big crisis on our stage of civilization. So I would like to choose this first point. What we can change, and I think that many difficulties now, many clashes when we discuss what is human rights, and so I try. I was trying to saw this, to watch on these main documents from these argues, from these arguments. And I think that our problem now also that we want to develop every specific direction of scholarship, of science. And we have many popular and many important texts in every direction, in politics, in social science, in philosophy, in international relations. But I think we lost this our understanding that our need as scholars not to improve our domain of knowledge, we need to decide our really problem. Most of them, I think, we create by our disciplinarity knowledge. I want to use this term post-disciplinarity as something where we decide problem, war between Ukraine and Russia, now a real problem, and it's nothing different for me. Who will stop this war? Who will build the peace after war? It could be political science. It could be international international relations. It could be something else. I am rooted in deep social cultural texts, classical social cultural texts, which saw history and dynamics of civilizations, and I think that we need maybe for next conversation, for next discussion, involve your colleagues from Faculty of Anthropology. Their perspectives, thoughts on our ways of our perspectives. So this is why I started from so deep base, that because this is not a sacrificed text. This text was created by human. We could change. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Svitlana. We only have really just a few minutes. I will just ask one more question if anybody wants to weigh on this one issue. Is there anything, any research suggest, because part of this discussion was looking towards also research topics or topics for exploration in media and further discussion from different fields. So if anybody would like to contribute briefly in 1 minute or less on this particular issue of research ideas that could emerge from this discussion, or how can sort of science and different fields of study work together to solve some of these big global problems and create positive change. If anybody has any ideas that they would like to contribute based on this discussion, we can do one final round of very rapidly. Does anybody have? Yes, Christal. One minute then, though, because then we have to wrap up. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm gonna abstract, like an abstract. Maybe next discussion could be like how to understand the function of the neurological things on the brain, of the brain. That's my idea.
Okay. Thank you very much. If nobody else has any contributions on future research directions, then I will begin to wrap up by saying the gravity, the importance of this conversation is driven home by Elena Montova's inability to join us because she is currently in a bunker right now. And so I would I hope you can perhaps pass on from her that we greatly appreciated her contribution as delivered through you, and that we hope that she is safe. A big thank you to the Global Governance Center supporting this discussion to take place. I really enjoyed this format, and thank you for everybody who contributed to this conversation, including those that have already left. But of course, more than anything, a huge thank you to Svitlana for spearheading this and framing this important discussion.